Hi, it's Peg and Des on
Breaking Bad.
So this is a new show for us to cover. It's not our usual. We normally do reality, but we're both super excited about the final season of Breaking Bad, and we thought we'd talk about it.
Yes.
So we have the last 8 episodes. It's very exciting. There's a lot going down, and we can't wait to dive in.
And before we get into it though, remember to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and follow us on Twitter at Peg and Des, and catch our other videos on our YouTube channel.
Exactly. So let's dive right in. So the show starts out, and it takes us a while to realize that we're a little bit in the future, but we can tell right away Walt has hair and glasses, and of course we don't know what they're gonna do from the last season, and Walt opens his trunk. He's got a small arsenal, and we see his house, and it is
devastation.
It is a disaster. Kids are skateboarding in the pool. It says Heisenberg, so we know that in the future Walt is exposed, and he goes to get the ricin.
Yes. When the episode first opened, in that cold opening, I wasn't sure if all of that activity had happened between season 4 and season 5.
Right.
And I was saying, wow, what in the world happened for us to already be here? But then we see after the credits that is a flash forward. We then come back to a much tighter timeline.
Yeah, so obviously the ricin here is going to be important, right? It's sort of like Chekhov's gun.
Yes.
Chekhov says, if you introduce a gun in act 1, it's got to go off by act 3. So we know at some point that ricin's been floating around the whole show since season 2, and I can't wait to see what Walt does with that ricin.
Me either. So we see Hank, after the opening credits, have a realization about Heisenberg, that his brother-in-law is in fact Heisenberg.
Right. He's sitting on the toilet. He's looking at Gail's leaves of grass, and it's literally probably a few seconds after last season ended, and this is where we start to get a hint that what we just seen is in the future.
Right.
With Walt. And Hank's face, that realization is just, he's stunned. It's almost like he's in a daze, and he just can't wait to get out of there.
It was a combination of being infuriated and confused, and there was so much going on. He immediately gets off the toilet, runs and interrupts the family dinner, and is like, everybody get up.
Right.
Everybody get up and get in the car right away. No goodbyes, and just everybody is out.
Yeah, he's reporting to be sick. He's got to go. He has a panic attack on the way home.
So that's what that was.
That is what that was. Yeah, he was so distraught that he had a panic attack on the way home. And Maria's like, obviously she's concerned. Our husband, he'd been shot, his health, had suffered, and here he is, he's freaking out because I really think that he doesn't know what's happening right now.
I was wondering if at one point, for a small fraction of a second, I said, did Walt poison Hank? That actually ran through my mind when he was driving and his eyes were all blurred. And I said, I wonder if Walt was on to Hank, being on to him, and poisoned that man at the family barbecue. We know that that's not what happened, but it did cross my mind.
I think that Hank is so shocked. And this is, just think about this realization. He's been chasing this Heisenberg for years, right? Or at least a year, right, in Breaking Bad time. And to realize that it's the guy who is your brother-in-law, who is one of your closest friends in life, is this evil person. He doesn't even know how to process it, I think, at this point. But we're going to see how he processes it later.
Not to mention all of the incidences that he was in with Walt that were somehow connected. So you can see his mind reeling.
Yes.
We're going to talk a little bit about it towards the end of this show, because there's, of course, a Walt and Hank confrontation. Right. But Hank's mind is just reeling a mile a minute. He can't process it all.
Right. So next we see Walt at the dry cleaner, and he's just being a normal Mr. Dry Cleaner, and who walks in?
He works at a car wash.
I'm sorry. Car wash. Sorry. And who walks in but Lydia?
Yes, with the rental car.
Yes. And she wants to talk business. And this is also where we find out that Walt is no longer in the business. He's given up a business.
Right, because she came to him and said, things are not working out. There's a problem with the product. And he says to her, I left you with a fully functioning business.
Right.
So I was like, well, wait a minute now. What business did you leave her with? I thought you were still, making it happen. But he's clearly gone.
So he's out, and that's a new development, because I didn't necessarily see Walt getting out, but it makes sense, and we'll find out more about that later. But Skylar immediately susses out something's wrong.
Yes.
And goes to threaten Lydia.
Yes, tells her don't come back here with anything else. No cars, no news, no nothing.
Right. And I like, my favorite part was when Walt said, have an A1 day. That's great. And so we see that, and then we go to my favorite character on the show, who is really breaking my heart, Jesse. Jesse looks zonked out on his couch like we've never seen him before. He looks so out of it and so lost and so sad that it's heartbreaking. And his friends are off yammer-yammering about a pretty hilarious sequence on Star Trek. But Jesse, his mind's not right.
Jesse is so disconnected from everything that's happening around him. I mean, in previous episodes, it was clear drugs are a problem. But in this episode, you're like, this is more than drugs. This is PTSD.
Right.
This is someone who is just trying to I don't even know that he's even connected to reality anymore. Does he even know what's real, what's not real? There's no more moral compass. He can't trust anyone. It's a catastrophe.
Yeah, so he goes to Saul, basically takes the huge bags of money that Walt gave him last season, Blood Money, which is the title of this episode, and he says, give one of these to Kaylee Ehrmantraut,
yes,
and give one of them to Drew Sharp's family. And
Saul says, that's probably not a good idea.
Right.
These folks would probably suspect that something's wrong with $2.5 million being dropped on their respective doorsteps.
Right, and I mean, the fact that Jesse says give one to Kaylee Ehrmantraut starts to clue us in that he suspects that Mike is not around to provide for
Precisely.
Kaylee Ehrmantraut.
Because Mike's whole thing was he wants a legacy for his granddaughter. I mean, that was the whole premise of Mike getting back in the business when he had the opportunity to disconnect from the business. Right. And this is clearly Jesse trying to fulfill that role for Mike. But why would the role need to be fulfilled if Mike's still around?
Right. Now, I mean, I thought Saul made sense. Like, you can't do this. Right. You can't, that's going to raise way too many red flags. So
Saul is shady, but he had some good advice.
Right. Saul's great. He's actually very good with his advice. And so he immediately gets Walt on the phone and says, you've got a problem. Your boy is tripping.
Yes.
Okay? So Walt goes over to talk to Jesse.
Right.
And I don't think we've actually seen Walt and Jesse be together for a while.
No, I haven't. I don't recall any recent episodes where they were together.
Yeah. So they have this talk, and basically Jesse accuses him of killing Mike, and
Walt denies.
He denies. He's a fantastic liar. He's continuing to manipulate Jesse. He's manipulated Jesse this entire show.
Yes.
And he says to him, "Look, I didn't kill Mike. Mike's fine, and you have to believe me on this one."
Yes.
And he says it twice, and I think he's saying, listen, be careful. We can't have problems. We're out, move on with your life, leave everything be, or else.
It's in your best interest to
Yes.
get your belief on.
Right.
If you just let this ride, we'll all be okay.
Exactly.
I felt like that was the underlying subtext of that discussion.
Yeah, I mean, Walt is clearly trying to move on, but we also see at some point, I don't remember exactly when, we see Walt get sick, and we know his something's wrong.
Right. We see him in a clinic.
Right. We see him in a clinic. We see him get sick in his bathroom. He's taking medication. We know something's wrong, right? And so the next thing we see is Jesse his talk with Walt did nothing for him. He's determined to get rid of that money. If they won't let him give it away,
he was going to Robin Hood it.
He gets this idea that he sees this homeless man, gives him money, then just gets this idea to toss money. Now, we know for a fact that if you're trying to throw $2.5 million out of your car window, that's going to lead to problems as well, right? Like that.
I never actually had that problem, so I don't know that for a fact.
Well, I would love to find a stack of hundreds in my driveway. Let me tell you, I'd love it.
Yeah.
But then we get to the big scene of the episode. Walt, you know, he's feeling uneasy. Something's not hitting him right. He goes outside. I mean, this is a man that, you know, he's used to not ignoring these feelings, right? His life is dependent on this
gut
so
instincts.
far.
Ride on your gut instincts or die.
Right. So he just feels like something's wrong. He checks under his car and he finds a GPS tracker
that looks oddly familiar.
Yeah. So the next day he goes in and he checks on our boy Hank to see how he's feeling. Meanwhile, Hank has been ordering up files.
Hank has turned his garage into one police plaza from Law and Order SVU. He's got tables stretched out. He's got people who've come over with boxes. The whole setup is laid out for Hank to do the investigation. And you can see him looking at videos, looking at pictures, and he's just putting this whole thing together in his mind. He, of course, is lacking a lot of physical evidence, but in his mind, the whole picture is coming together right there in that garage.
So when Walt shows up and he's talking to Hank and they're exchanging pleasantries, Hank can't even look Walt in the eye.
No.
He's not acting like himself at all. It's like, you know when you hate someone, you hate them, and they're trying to talk to you and you're trying to act normal, but you really can't even, just the look of on their face. Just the sight of them makes you
Walt
ill.
even says, Hank, I don't really like the way you're looking at me right now. I mean, that was actually an exchange that the two of them had.
Well, yeah, I mean, he says it, you know, after he asks him about that tracker.
Yes.
You know, he pretends to be like, oh, it's all good. Oh, by the way.
Right.
What's this? You know? And then Hank closes that garage door and we know it's on and popping. And you know what's cool is that I didn't expect the conversation between Walt and Hank to happen in episode 1
I didn't either.
Season. I thought they were going to drag it out a little bit longer, but it was really cool that they immediately have this confrontation.
Right.
And all of Hank's anger and sense of betrayal comes out in that moment.
Well, he says, you drove me into traffic. You bombed a nursing home. He just starts running through all of the aftermath of Walt's behavior. And he's basically looking at a monster and just coming to grips with the fact that he is in fact in a family with a monster. And not to mention the fact that these families have shared a lot of close moments.
They're very close.
They spend time together. I mean, this is not like, oh, that's my brother-in-law down the way.
Right.
This is very much, we are around each other all the time. My kids have been with you.
Right.
Your kids have been with me. The whole bit.
Yeah. So he basically punches Walt out, spills the beans, and Walt, I think, does a very good job. He must be panicking internally. Internally, he must be like, his mind is blowing as well, but he does a very good job of not admitting anything at all to Hank. And then he utters the minute you heard the words, you knew it was going to be like big. He basically says, look, you don't know what's going on here. And if I were you, I would tread lightly.
When he said that to me was a ringer for, a couple of things. You feel like it's a ringer for don't ruin our family without a lot of information.
I feel like the way he said it is dual meaning. That's one of the meanings.
The way I immediately read, I thought that's an interesting take on it, because the thing that I immediately thought about was if you think I am who you think I am, then you really need to be careful now.
Yes, I think that was the other dual meaning. And actually, the way that he said tread lightly, you saw a little bit of Heisenberg come out.
Yes.
Just a little bit in his voice.
Yes.
That dangerous killer.
And I think he's scared, Hank.
I think so too. But Hank's not going to let this go.
Hank will not be deterred.
No. So that's this episode 1 of Breaking Bad. Super exciting. And again, remember, please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, leave us comments. What do you think? What do you think about that tread lightly line? What are your thoughts on it? And
catch our other videos on our YouTube channel.
Absolutely. So we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.